Incredible 8-year-old girl unexpectedly inspires billionaire to change everything for her mother. Lily was anything but ordinary. With wild curls that danced around her face, and big, sparkling green eyes that saw the beauty in everything, she was a beacon of light in a dull, struggling town. Every day after school, she rushed home to her mom Sarah, a nurse whose hands were worn but warm, as she tirelessly worked to keep their world afloat. While Sarah fought the grueling battle of life in her scrubs, Lily kept their dreams alive, drawing pictures of better days under skies filled with color, always hopeful that a brighter future awaited them. But love and hope couldn't fill empty plates. Every night, while Sarah pulled long shifts at the hospital, Lily felt an ache in her heart. They had each other, but the connection often felt frayed beneath the weight of survival. She realized that she needed to do something to bridge the gap of loneliness that often hung between them. Inspired by a school project about dreams, she penned a heartfelt letter about her mother's sacrifices, filled with dreams for a better life. This wasn't just any letter, it was a piece of her soul, wrapped in childhood sincerity. Little did she know, her words traveled far right into the hands of Mark Randalls, a billionaire who had long lost touch with the meaning of family. Burdened by an estranged relationship with his own father, Mark was drawn to the community when he read Lily's letter. He found himself at the local fair, amidst swirling colors and laughter, but there was a heaviness in his chest. As he watched the camaraderie of the townsfolk, sharing smiles and support in the face of hardship, he felt alive in a way he hadn't in years. Lily stood on a makeshift stage, presenting her project. The way she spoke about her mother, about dreams too wide to fit into a small town, startled him. Unity and love filled the fairground, but shame etched across his heart as he realized how vastly separated their worlds were. He witnessed firsthand the stark contrasts in life. His wealth had never brought him warmth or happiness. The realization struck him, empathy grew roots inside him like a buried seed soaking up sunlight. Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Driven by a newfound passion, Mark decided to invest in the town, to give back the way he thought was needed. Hope flickered like a candlelight, but when the townspeople caught wind of his plans, the warmth turned cold. People feared their identities would be washed away by outside interference. Tensions bubbled beneath the surface, and the tight-knit community began to fracture. But at the heart of this chaos was Lily. With the boldness of childhood belief, she stepped forward, understanding that true wealth lay in connection and support. In this extraordinary moment, she showed them and Mark that hard work and community spirit were the keys to hope, not just another corporate promise that could extinguish their dreams. As Mark wrestled with their beliefs, he was also pulled to reconnect with his father, where true lessons awaited him. But just as the landscape began to shift, life threw another challenge his way, leaving the question lingering in the air: could a billionaire truly understand the definition of giving back when it seemed their very dignity was at stake? Would Lily's bravery bridge the gaps that money could not? The story of love, sacrifice, and struggle was only just beginning. The night after the fair, Lily's world felt both brighter and heavier. She sat at the little table in their modest kitchen, colored crayons strewn across the top like confetti. But instead of immersing herself in art, her heart was tangled in worries. The townsfolk's voices echoed in her mind, fearful whispers about a stranger with a pocketful of money and plans that might disrupt their way of life. It didn't sit right with her, the idea that someone could take their dreams and change them like flipping a switch. Meanwhile, Mark was in his sleek, high-rise apartment, staring out at a skyline that felt disconnected from any real meaning. The twinkling lights of the city mirrored his confusion. He had always been taught that money equaled power, yet now, he felt powerless in the face of so much pride and history. What good would his intentions be if they were met with resistance? He craved understanding, a connection to what really mattered, but how could he make the townspeople see that he was there to help? The next day, something inside him snapped. He gathered his team and set out for the town. He knew he needed to approach this carefully. Instead of showcasing grandiose plans, he decided to listen. His heart raced at the thought of meeting Lily again. She had sparked something in him, and it felt like a flame that refused to dim. As he entered the busy small-town square, Lily was there, chatting with her friends, her laughter like music that painted the air. He approached her slowly, bending down to her level. "Hi, Lily," he said, the gentleness of his voice surprising him. "Do you mind if I walk with you?" Lily's eyes sparkled with curiosity. "Of course. I love your shoes," she exclaimed, pointing at his expensive footwear. It was a charming touch that defined her view of the world, always seeing something beautiful in everything. They began to walk, and she launched into tales of her favorite spots in town: the ice cream shop where the scoop was always too big and Mrs. Miller's garden that bloomed with colorful flowers. Mark listened intently, savoring her words like a delicate dessert. "You know, Lily," he began, nervous but determined, "I want to help this town. But I need to know what you think we really need. What's gonna make everything better?" She stopped, her little hands on her hips, deep in thought. "We don't need more buildings or things. We need more people helping people. We need to share the good stuff, the fun nights, and togetherness." Mark felt something stir in his chest. "You mean connection?" "Yeah. Like community projects, games, and making things fun. Not just office stuff." Her voice was filled with conviction, her innocence a stark reminder of how pure the human spirit could be. He looked into her bright green eyes and realized she saw the issue so clearly. "You're right." A faint smile crept onto his face. "What if we hosted events that brought everyone together? Music, food, fun." Her eyes lit up with excitement. "Can we really do that? Can we have a fair? Again?" The idea warmed Mark's heart. "Absolutely. But I need your help to make it happen." At that moment, as plans began swirling between them, a sense of possibility filled the air. They might just bridge the gap together. But as they continued to brainstorm bigger dreams, an unexpected figure loomed into view: Sarah, Lily's mother. Her expression shifted as she caught sight of Mark. The tension in her eyes told him everything he feared, a mother's protectiveness fiercely guarding her child from this stranger. "Lily, come here," Sarah called out, stepping closer. Mark could feel the air shift, and suddenly, he was again faced with the walls he'd need to break down. Would Lily's spark be enough to convince her mother, or would the past shadows of doubt and mistrust loom too large for any dream? Lily felt her heart drop as Sarah strode toward them, her steps heavy with caution. The laughter that filled the air moments before seemed to fade, and the sunlight flickered with uncertainty. She could sense the tension rising like a storm cloud, ready to burst. "Mom, wait. We were just talking about plans for a fair," Lily said, rushing to bridge the gap. She grabbed her mother's hand, squeezing it tightly. "It's gonna be amazing. We can have games, music, and everyone in the town can come together." But Sarah's eyes narrowed slightly, concern painted across her features. "Lily, you don't really know him. He's just a businessman looking to change things up. This fair, it's not just fun, it's about what they want." Mark stood there, feeling a mixture of dread and hope swirl inside him. "I promise you, Ma, I only want to help the community. I've been listening. I want to support what you and Lily believe will make this place better," he explained, his voice steady but laced with an urgency to connect. Sarah crossed her arms, the protective stance betraying her instinct to shield her daughter. "It's not just about what you want. It's about our lives here, our history. You think throwing a fair will solve everything?" Lily's grip on her mother's hand tightened. "But, Mom, what if it could? What if it helps people feel happy and safe again?" Mark really listened to me. The words hung in the air, fragile yet charged with possibility. Mark felt the warmth of their shared vision, but he also saw the shadows of doubt in Sarah's eyes. "I'm willing to work with you. I want to understand what the town needs." His voice softened. "I'm not here to take anything away. I want to give. Please, let me show you." A flicker of hesitation passed over Sarah's face. Her love for Lily was palpable, but the memories of past disappointments held her back. People had promised changes before, only to leave chaos in their wake. "Trust is earned, Mark. It's not something you can rush." Her voice was firm, but there was a tightness in her chest that echoed unsettled fears. Mark nodded. "I understand. Maybe it starts with something small. How about we plan the fair together? You can keep an eye on everything. Lily and I can run the ideas by you first." Lily bounced on her toes, spilling enthusiasm like a joyful waterfall. "Yes. We can involve everyone. It'll be the best day ever." She looked between her mother and Mark, determination bubbling within her. "I don't know." Sarah wavered slightly. "Just think about it," Mark reiterated gently. "You're right to be cautious. I don't take this lightly. If we work together, it can be a way for the town to reunite. Show that small things can bring back connection and warmth." Lily beamed, and for the first time, Mark saw a crack in Sarah's defenses. The tension was thick, but unsaid words fluttered like leaves in the wind. Could they really bridge this gap? Could hope be rekindled? Just then, a loud honk broke through the moment. Sarah jumped, looking away temporarily, her brow furrowing as she peeked toward the busy square. Mark took a step forward, sensing the urgency in the air. "We could borrow a truck to start moving things if—" "Wait!" Lily exclaimed, pointing. "Look! It's Mrs. Miller." Mark glanced toward the old woman approaching with an armful of fresh flowers. Sarah's focus shifted entirely. The warmth on her features softened as she recognized the motherly figure who tended to the town's vibrant garden. "Mrs. Miller. Great to see you." Lily called out, her joy bursting forth like sunshine. "Lily. Oh my, have you been taking care of these flowers, dear?" Mrs. Miller asked, her voice sprightly. As they exchanged pleasantries, Mark felt the tension ease, but another concern tightened his gut. This was just the beginning, convincing Sarah would only be the first hurdle. As Mrs. Miller joined their conversation, Mark's heart raced again. The words he'd need to say would require more than just charm. Would he be able to earn Sarah's trust? With every laugh shared, every glance cast, the small fair they envisioned seemed closer, yet he could never overlook the weight of the past pressing down hard on the present. "Let's talk about this," Sarah finally said, her voice softer now as curiosity intertwined with caution. "But we take it slow. If you're sincere, understand that I won't back down easily." Hope flickered in Mark's chest. Would he be able to prove that real change could come from a shared dream? But in that moment, another sound broke through a distant siren. Everyone turned, an eerie feeling lingering in the air. What was this signal for? Would it swirl in with their plans and dreams, or was it a warning of something more? The siren echoed through the bustling square, slicing through the fragile moment of connection they had just started to build. Mark's heart raced as he scanned the horizon, trying to pinpoint the source of the disturbance. It felt like an omen, a wave of unease washing over him. "Mom, what's happening?" Lily's voice quivered slightly, her innocent excitement from just moments ago washed away by concern. Sarah's face tightened as she took in the sight of the flashing lights approaching. "I don't know, honey," she replied, her voice steady even as her eyes flicked back to Mark, searching for answers. Mrs. Miller shielded her eyes against the sun, squinting toward the distant chaos. "Looks like trouble down by the old Miller's bakery. That place has been falling apart for years," she said, her voice low with concern. Mark felt the urgency shift in the air, but he couldn't shake the feeling that whatever was happening was something deeper than just an accident. This was a town with beginnings and endings interwoven, and its past pressed heavily against its future. Maybe we should check it out together, Mark suggested, wanting to keep the momentum of their conversation alive. He recognized that change needed action, and action needed a community. Together. If something's wrong, we should know. And maybe we can help. Sarah hesitated, her eyes darting between Mark and Lily. You want us to run into trouble? She asked, her protective instincts flaring. Not run into trouble, but find out what is happening, he reassured her, feeling the fierce heat of determination rising in his chest. If we can sort things out as a community, it might show everyone we can be proactive together. Lily listened intently, her small hand still clasping her mother's. Please, Mom. We can help. Sarah's breath hitched at her daughter's plea. The whirling chaos of the sirens threatened to pull them apart, yet here was Lily, full of hope, urging them to unite. Okay, let us go. They moved through the throng, Mark leading the way with a pulse of urgency. Every step brought them closer to the bakery, but a knot of anxiety twisted in his gut. What if this was the catalyst for change they needed, or the greater storm that would test their resolve? As they rounded the corner, the scene unfolded. A crowd had gathered, their murmurs rising like the smoke billowing from behind the bakery's aged facade. Mark could see residents stepping forward, concerned faces etched with worry. What happened? Sarah asked a neighbor as they neared. There's been a fire, I think. And the roof, it looks like it might collapse. The woman's voice trembled, her eyes wide. Mark felt the churning sense of urgency transform into something more palpable. This wasn't just about a fair anymore. The bakery was a landmark of their town, a symbol of all the memories stitched into their lives. If this building fell, something else would too, a piece of their identity, maybe even a piece of Sarah's trust. Lily tugged on her mother's arm, her young face filled with a mixture of fear and resolve. We have to do something, Mom. You're right. Sarah clenched her jaw, her own fear sparking a sense of determination. We can't just watch this happen. Mark felt a shift within him, a wave of shared purpose growing stronger. Let us gather everyone, see what we can do to help, he urged, adrenaline pouring through him. I know I'm new here, but if we come together, we can make a difference. They formed a small circle, hands clasping in a chain of energy. And as they began to strategize, Lily's bright voice shone through the crowd. We can save the bakery together. We can make it better after. Mark couldn't help but smile at her enthusiasm. There it was, the connection he had hoped to foster through the fair, ignited under the shadow of an unexpected crisis. But as the crowd began to organize themselves, turning fear into action, Mark felt another surge of concern. What if their efforts weren't enough? The sirens wailed louder, the day was shifting, and as smoke twisted above them, he couldn't shake the feeling that this was just the beginning of something much bigger. Would their combined efforts be enough to rebuild not just the bakery, but the trust that had been eroded over time? The question lingered in the air, heavy with possibility. The crowd's murmurs grew louder, a mix of anxious chatter and dispatched laughter, both disjointed against the backdrop of the flames licking at the bakery. Mark pulled in a deep breath, the acrid smell of smoke clinging to him like a heavy coat, and felt a swell of pride recognizing the bravery bubbling among the townsfolk. These were his neighbors, ready to rise up, not just as individuals but as a single unit. All right, everyone, let us focus, Mark yelled, trying to cut through the noise. We need a plan. He spotted a few strong faces among the crowd, people he remembered from past community gatherings. Mrs. Taylor. Can you get some buckets of water? Mr. Jones, I know you have a fire extinguisher in your truck. Can you bring that over? As people started breaking away, urgency fused with a newfound hope. Sarah stood close to him, determination etched across her features. You really think we can do this? She asked, her voice barely rising above the clamor, glancing from Mark to Lily. Yes. Lily shouted, her smile wide, infectious in the chaos. She bounced on her toes, brimming with youthful vigor. We can be like heroes. Mark grinned down at her. Exactly like heroes, Lil. Everyone can be a hero today if they stand together. Before long, Mrs. Taylor had organized a line of neighbors passing buckets along like a human chain, while Mr. Jones struggled with a large fire extinguisher, a sparkle of grit in his eye. The bakery, that old building steeped in memories, was the heart of their community. If it fell, would they ever truly recover? With every bucket thrown, the flames began to shrink back, a few townsfolk shouting out encouragement. Keep going. Don't stop. The support echoed through the dim smoke, lifting spirits as it diluted fear. Mark moved among them, motivated by the fire and the fierce spirit of resilience churning within. After a while, the pace slowed. The fire was under control, sputtering and crackling as the last of the flames died away. Mark felt a rush of elation, only to be pierced by the sudden realization what came next. The charred remains of the bakery stood like a ghost, a shadow of what it had once been. Silence fell over the crowd as they took in the damage. Their efforts had saved what could be saved, but the spirit of the old bakery remained diminished, cloaked in ashes. The townsfolk murmured among themselves, a mixture of disbelief and disappointment filling the air. We did great. Lily piped up, and Mark glanced down at her, her innocence punctuating the heaviness that loomed over them. Can we help fix it? I want to make it better. There was a somber moment as Mark considered Lily's words. Could they bring back the bakery? To restore its former glory, not just in bricks but as a source of laughter, gatherings, love? Taking a deep breath, he pulled the group close, their faces painted with exhaustion but lit with a flicker of hope. What if we turned this into something more? A project for us all, not just to rebuild the bakery, but to bring our community together in a new way. The spark of excitement rippled through the crowd like fire itself, igniting small whispers of agreement. As they began discussing ideas, something amazing stirred inside Mark, a realization that this crisis could be a catalyst for connection, fostering a new chapter that went beyond the ashes of an old building. Just then, a voice broke through, low and fervent. I might have a way to help fund what you're planning. Mark turned, heart racing, eyes catching a glimpse of a tall figure emerging from the crowd. Was it really who he thought it was? His throat tightened as the man stepped forward, the same man who had moved to town alongside those shadowy rumors that marred speculation. And with that unexpected twist, the question hung in the air, would this stranger's help turn their vision into reality, or would it dissolve in the flames of doubt? Mark's heartbeat quickened as the tall figure stepped into view. The man stood confidently, his sharp suit contrasting starkly with the smoldering remains of the bakery. He had an air about him, the kind of presence that commanded attention. Though Mark had never spoken to him directly, he had seen him in town, always mingling in the cafes, sipping coffee, or on his phone, his eyes scanning the bustling streets with a calculating intensity. Mr. Ellis, Mark ventured, trying to keep his voice steady. Is that you? Ellis nodded, a faint smile curling his lips. It is, indeed, he said, his voice deep and smooth. And I think I might have the resources to help you with your project. The murmurs in the crowd shifted once more. Whispers filled the air. Was this really happening? This was the man they had talked about while lining up at the market, the one who held a fortune, the one they secretly judged for his aloof demeanor. Some looked skeptical, others hopeful. Why would you want to help us? Sarah spoke up, her brow knotted. The crowd fell silent, eyes darting from her to Ellis. You barely know us. Ellis took a step forward, grounding himself in front of them. That's quite true, he began slowly, each word measured. But I've witnessed this town's spirit. I've seen the bond you share, the way you rallied to save your community's center. I can't sit back and watch something beautiful like this slip away. We all deserve a chance to rebuild what we love. Mark felt a mixture of admiration and suspicion. Could they really trust this man? But then he remembered Lily's bright smile and the determination that had ignited within the crowd. Perhaps this was their chance, the support they hadn't dared hope for. "Let us hear him out," he said, raising his hand to quiet the crowd. "Mr. Ellis, how do you see this going forward?" Ellis glanced around at the assembled townsfolk, his gaze intentionally resting on Lily, whose hopeful eyes sparkled despite the ashes all around. "I propose we start a crowdfunding campaign, but I'll match whatever you raise," he explained. "In fact, I will host an event here, bring in some entertainers, food, everything you need. The more we raise, the more we can restore." Excitement rippled through the group, cautious but palpable. Mark felt hope swell within him, flooding his chest with warmth. "And what do you want in return?" he had to ask, and as those words left his lips, the crowd shifted imperceptibly, the air thick with tension. Ellis waved a hand dismissively. "Nothing beyond the joy of seeing this place thrive again. I want to build a space for the community, one where families can gather, where laughter spills from every corner." His earnestness seemed genuine, but doubt tugged at Mark. Lily's voice broke through again, naive and bright. "Can we have ice cream if we fix it?" Laughter erupted, an unexpected release, pulling the crowd together. Mark saw the knot of worry unravel just a bit. "Sure, let us make that happen," Ellis replied, laughing along with them. It was a small moment but one that moved Mark. Maybe this man could be part of their story, but at what cost? As they began hashing out ideas, the air buzzed with renewed purpose. But lurking beneath the surface was the nagging question: could hope truly blossom from ashes, or would hidden motives extinguish it all too soon? Mark glanced at the tattered remains of the bakery, feeling a mix of apprehension and determination. They were staring down a challenge bigger than they had ever faced. Would they be able to rise from the ashes, or would they falter? Each step forward into the unknown felt like a leap, but one that they had to take. Just then, a shiver wind swept through the gathering, and the scratching sound of a pen hitting paper broke the chant of planning. Mark turned to see Ellis signing something, and in that moment, he froze. What deal was this man making now that could change everything? The excitement faded into a new tension, and uncertainty had their hopes spiraled into something far more complex than they understood. Mark's heart raced, uncertainty gnawing at him. The smile on Ellis's face seemed to be holding back something, an ulterior motive that felt just out of reach. The pen moved swiftly across the page, and no one dared interrupt the moment. The crowd watched intently, murmuring among themselves, sharing glances filled with a mix of hope and suspicion. "What does this mean for us?" Sarah whispered to Mark, her voice barely cutting through the growing tension. He was still staring at Ellis, trying to decipher what he was signing away. "I'm not sure yet," he replied, his eyes not leaving the imposing figure before them. Ellis finally looked up, the document clutched in his hands like a treasure. "Now that's done," he announced, and the crowd fell silent. "We can start the preparations right away. I'll cover the logistics, venues, permits, whatever it takes. We'll turn this into a celebration of community." Cheers erupted, and Mark felt a warm swell of gratitude for the idea of reclaiming what they had lost. Yet, another piece of him remained wary. Celebration? It felt too soon for that, didn't it? He worried that while they were planning festivities, they might ignore the darkness that lingered just below the surface. Lily tugged on Mark's sleeve, her voice bright and innocent amid the adults' fervor. "Do you think we'll really get ice cream at the party?" Mark knelt down, eyes meeting hers. "I think if anyone can make that happen, it's you." His heart softened as he watched her beam. For all the fear swirling in the air, here was pure, unfiltered innocence shining through. Her faith felt nearly unshakable. As excitement took hold and discussions transformed into hopeful chatter, Mark caught Ellis watching him closely, as if studying a challenge he was ready to conquer. "Mr. Ellis," Mark called out, pulling the billionaire's focus. "What if the fundraising doesn't meet expectations? What happens to the project then?" Ellis's smile faded slightly, and for the first time, he seemed human. "We adapt. We can cut costs, find alternative funding. But I believe in this community. You all have the heart to make it work. That's worth more than anything an investor could bring. Mark nodded slowly. There was something deeply compelling about that belief. Could it be genuine? As conversations began to unravel into planning specifics, music choices, food stalls, and decorations, Mark felt drawn into the energy, the raw potential of hope and revival that buzzed through the air. Lily scampered off to join a group of kids, and for a moment, Mark let himself imagine a future where laughter filled the bakery again. But as the adults continued brainstorming, anxiety crept back into his mind. What did Ellis want? He glanced at the towering figure conversing with Sarah, sharing ideas that felt too grand for their little town. Was the excitement he felt justified? Or were there hidden costs they hadn't considered? Then, a shadow crossed the afternoon sun, and Mark's gut tightened. He noticed someone lingering at the edges of the town square, a figure that seemed out of place. The stranger's gaze flicked between them and Ellis, a sense of foreboding washed over him. "Hey, who's that?" he asked, pointing discreetly with a nod. Sarah turned, her eyes narrowing as realization set in. "I don't know, but they've been watching for a while now." Mark's pulse quickened. Could this stranger be connected to Ellis? And if so, what did that mean for their plans? With the excitement of the day overshadowed by a new wave of uncertainty, Mark felt a painful knot form in his stomach. They were on the brink of something beautiful, but just as easily, it could all crumble around them. The party could be a turning point, or it could expose deeper, darker undertones. Everything was hanging in the balance. Would they rise together, or would unseen obstacles derail their hopes entirely? As he watched the stranger slip further back into the crowd, Mark knew he had to find out more. Time was running short, and the pieces were falling into place, but would he be ready for what came next? Mark strained to catch another glimpse of the shadowy figure at the edge of the square. It felt as if the vibrant energy around him, the laughter of children, the chatter of excited adults had dimmed, reduced to a murmur as urgency gripped him. Who was this person, and what danger did they pose? "Mark?" Sarah's voice broke his focus. She was standing close, her brow furrowed in concern. "Are you okay?" "Yeah, just keep an eye on that stranger, would you?" He gestured discreetly toward where the figure had been, but the crowd had shifted, obscuring his view. Sarah nodded, her eyes narrowing again, a protective instinct igniting within her. "We can't let anything ruin this." "Not now." Mark forced a smile, trying to push back the tension rising in his chest. "Right. We've come too far for that." Lily returned, hair bouncing as she ran, her cheeks flushed with excitement. "Mark. Can we have face paint? Please." Her eyes shone with a purity that collapsed the walls around his worries, making him feel the warmth of hope once more. "Of course," he said, tousling her hair. "That'll be a blast." As the party planning continued, Mark felt the air thick with ambition, but also thick with suspicion. What did Ellis truly want? Mark watched him as he rallied the townsfolk around grand ideas, the atmosphere crackling with optimism. But the charismatic billionaire had an aura that felt almost too good to be true. Just then, a voice emerged from the crowd, startling Mark from his thoughts. "Does anyone know who that person is?" Heads turned, conversations quieted as all eyes fell on the stranger again. The murmurs started. "Do you think they're from the city? What are they doing here?" "I don't like this," Mark murmured, mostly to himself. But he needed to focus. Predictions of what the party could accomplish buzzed through his mind, filled with visions of revitalizing their bakery, reinstating their neighborly spirit. The crew tossed around so many suggestions: a barbecue, a dance contest, perhaps even a community mural. Each idea sprang to life, igniting the faces of those around him. Yet, the shadow of the unknown felt like a weight pressing on his shoulders. As the crowd began to break into smaller groups to hammer out details, Mark felt a sudden pull to investigate. "I'll be right back," he said to Sarah and Lily. He navigated through the sea of excited townsfolk, determined to find that figure. The crowd was so enveloped in joy, but something inside Mark told him to be alert. How could an outsider dismissively watch while everyone celebrated? When he finally reached the edge of the square, the stranger had vanished, leaving only a lingering unease in their wake. Mark scanned the streets overflowing with color and laughter but couldn't shake that dark, fluttering feeling in his chest. Just a little more digging, he told himself. I have to know. But before he could dwell on it further, a sudden shout pierced the air. Mark turned to see Ellis waving his arms, garnering attention again. What do you say we make this the best day ever? As cheers erupted, Mark's heart sank. They were floating on optimism, yet the air crackled with something unspoken. Could they keep riding this wave? Would it take confidence or courage to face whatever shadows might lurk? With dread competing with glimmers of hope, Mark returned to the jubilant throng, but not without resolution. He would uncover the truth, no matter what it took. As laughter echoed in his ears, one thought stood out amidst the chaos: what if the real challenge lay not in the party but in protecting the very community that seemed to be so fragile? What were they bringing to fruition, and would it be enough to shield them from the threats that kept whispering from the edges? Mark's steps hesitated as he blended back into the crowd that buzzed with energy. An urge to protect his little corner of the world choked him. With every laugh and cheer, the stranger's disappearance only deepened his concern. What if that figure wasn't just a curiosity but a warning? Mark. Sarah's voice cut through his thoughts. She approached, her brows still furrowed as she clutched Lily's hand. The girl's face was beaming with excitement, her painted cheek showcasing a bright butterfly that seemed to fly right off her skin. Look at this. Mark knelt to meet Lily's gaze, the worry in his eyes melting away for a moment. Wow! You look amazing. He smiled, ruffling her hair gently, but the shadow didn't lift as he locked eyes with Sarah. Did you see where the stranger went? Sarah's gaze darted around. No. But it's really starting to get lively. Maybe you're worrying too much. Maybe, he replied, unconvinced. But the gnawing feeling in his gut wouldn't let go. Let us join the others. We can't let fear steal our joy. They moved toward Ellis, who was now rallying everyone for a group picture. The snap of cameras filled the air, laughter cascading like the music that floated in the background. But even as smiles brightened many faces, Mark couldn't shake the sensation that something was amiss. The moment hung in the air, precariously balanced between celebration and unease. As they lined up, Mark stood at the edge, trying to catch a glimpse of the nearby street. What was this stranger doing? Come on, we need you in this one. Ellis called, gesturing for him to join. The crowd pulled him in, and with a forced grin, he managed to fit into the photo. But deep down, Mark knew he couldn't linger in the light-hearted atmosphere without addressing the darkness looming outside. After the picture wrapped up, he slipped away once more, scanning the faces in the crowd. Conversations flowed, blending with the sounds of music and laughter, yet the shadow in his mind remained persistent. Are you sure you're okay? Sarah caught up to him again, her eyes searching the depths of his. You're acting strange. I just need a moment, he said, pulling her close. I'll be right back. As he stepped away, he spotted someone lingering on the edge of the festival, hidden by the vibrancy of balloons and brightly colored stalls. It wasn't the shadowy figure he had seen earlier but another unknown face, a woman, her expression strained, clutching a child's hand tightly. Mark approached cautiously, sensing her unease mirrored his own. Everything all right? He asked, genuinely hoping to extend warmth. The woman turned, surprise flashing in her eyes. Just it's so lively here, she said, her voice low but brittle, as if she were trying to shield herself from the chaos. Yeah, it can be overwhelming, Mark nodded. Are you new here? She hesitated. Just passing through. Name's Mark. He offered a smile, but she didn't fully return it. You've gotta see this place. It's not just a festival, it's family. What's your name? Chloe, she replied, glancing back at the child beside her, someone Mark hadn't noticed until now, a girl, around Lily's age, with wide, curious eyes. Nice to meet you. Mark said warmly. Is this your daughter? Yes, she said hesitantly, almost protective. Her name is Emma. Mark's heart twisted as the little girl smiled timidly back at him. She looks like she'd love some face paint. We just got ours. Chloe, the name hung in the air, a whisper of something unresolved. There was a struggle behind her gaze, a weight pressing down on her spirit. Can I help you with anything? Mark asked, the genuine urge to assist surging within him. Chloe's eyes flickered as if a door was opening, but she quickly closed it again. No, it's fine. Just looking for something. Mark sensed there was more. I know this town and its people, he said softly. If something's wrong, we can help you, together. As she opened her mouth, about to speak, the joyous music shifted to a more serious note, and a commotion erupted at the heart of the square. Shouts rang out, and the crowd began to part. Wait! Mark shouted, instinctively moving toward the chaos. Chloe grasped Emma's hand tighter, but her gaze was on him, as if deciding whether to trust. The atmosphere had shifted, and whatever festivity had painted the day suddenly hung in the balance. What had they stumbled into? The air was charged, unsettling, as Mark's heart raced. Something was about to unfold, and deep down, he feared it could shake their fragile community to its core. In that moment, he realized their fight was just beginning. Would he have the strength to stand against the shadows, not just for his family but for the very people he had sworn to protect? Mark's heart hammered in his chest as he pushed through the crowd that had formed to witness the commotion. Anxiety buzzed around him, palpable and electric, wrapping around him like a heavy blanket. Whatever was happening, it felt like a storm was brewing, threatening to unleash chaos where they had just glimpsed hope. Stay close, Lily. Sarah's voice cut through his racing thoughts. He turned just in time to see her clutching Lily's hand tightly, her face a mask of worry. What had caused this sudden shift? Had somebody from the past returned? He could smell the tension in the air, it was thick, like an impending thunderstorm. As he made his way closer, he saw a man standing at the center, casting a long shadow over the gathering. The crowd murmured, faces stricken with confusion and fear. Was this the figure he had sensed earlier, or someone else entirely? Let's calm down, folks. The man raised his voice, but the tremors of authority seemed more aggressive than reassuring. I'm here to ask questions, and I want answers. Mark hastened forward, instinct driving him to act. What kind of questions? He shouted, voice rising above the murmurs. The man turned, eyes narrowing as they met Mark's gaze. Where's Ellis? I need to speak with him. Whispers erupted. Fear rippled like a wave through the crowd. Mark scanned the spectators. They had come together with hopes of rebuilding, now, they were faced with another unknown. A moment later, Ellis emerged, his facial expression calm but his eyes reflecting the growing tension. What's going on, Ray? He said coolly, stepping forward as if he understood this man's importance. People want to know who you are, what right you have to come here and promise them the moon, Ray countered, taking a step closer, the crowd parting to let him through. I've seen outsiders like you before, thinking they can just stroll in and take over. You think they'll trust you? You've got another thing coming. The air crackled, a mixture of unease and anger. Mark's stomach twisted, he knew this was more than just a misunderstanding. Everyone, let's not jump to conclusions here, Ellis interjected, his voice steady but the pressure increasing. My intentions are clear. I want to help this community thrive. We're here to celebrate together and rebuild what matters. At that moment, Lily squirmed against Sarah's grip, her eyes wide, drinking in the exchange. Mom. Are they going to fight? She whispered, her innocent wonder slicing through the tension like a beam of sunlight. Mark knelt beside her, forcing a smile. "No, honey. They're just talking. Sometimes grown-ups argue about things, but it's okay if we listen." "Yeah. I want to help. Can I?" Lily plucked up her courage, her innocent chatter becoming louder, drawing attention back to her bright spirit. But Ray's gaze hardened. "This is not a game, little girl," he shot back, his irritation only fueling the anxiety. "Ray." Ellis's voice rose with authority, cutting through the banter. "This isn't about taking over. This is about rebuilding our foundation together. I know you care deeply for this town, and I respect that. But what do you offer them? Only more conflict." The crowd shifted, caught between Ellis's polished assurances and Ray's underlying aggression. Mark felt the gravity of their moment constricting like a vice, squeezing tighter with every exchange. "Love for this place. That's what?" Ray shouted, his voice raw, unyielding. "And if we've lost that to someone thinkin' they can just bank on flattery, how's that fair? They'll show their true colors soon enough." Mark felt the tension pulsing in the air. This was no simple confrontation, it was a battle for the town's heart, for the trust woven between each citizen. "I understand where you're coming from, Ray," Mark finally said, stepping forward, standing shoulder to shoulder with Ellis. The murmurs quieted, focus shifting to him. "But we all want the same thing here. We want to make our community stronger. We need to build that trust back together. That means working side by side, not taking things away." Sarah's grip on Lily tightened as they exchanged a glance, hope flickering back into her eyes as if Mark's rallying words had sparked the flames of unity. "If you're both serious, then prove it. Let's lay the groundwork right now, together. I say we host a meeting, where every voice can be heard, not just the loud ones," Mark declared, projecting warmth and sincerity as he looked at Ray. "Community isn't just words, it's about listening and acting." Ray hesitated, uncertainty in his eyes. "Fine. But if you're playing games with my people, I'll make sure you regret it. But if you're truly here to uplift, we'll stand behind you," Mark replied, determination brightening his voice. Lily looked up at Mark, her pride spilling over. "See. We can do this." Even in the midst of chaos, hope surged once again. The crowd echoed her sentiment, paid their attentions to these determined hearts who dared to believe in a brighter future. Ellis glanced around, sensing the shift and the momentum building. "Let's take this step together," he said, now embodying the excitement that had once felt distant. "A community meeting at the bakery will help us redefine ourselves together, and we want you all there." Mark felt the corner of his mouth lift. They were moving past fear and into possibility. They could accept the challenge, respond with resilience, because they were a community united. Together, they took the first steps toward turning tension into trust, each of their voices carrying the weight of not just their stories, but their future. But beneath this newfound hope, Mark couldn't ignore the whisper growing stronger in his heart. There were battles still to come, and the shadows of doubt still flickered at the edges. Would their bond be strong enough to withstand what lay ahead? The question remained, hanging suspended in the air, but they were ready to find our answers together. Our story was not just beginning, it was evolving, transforming into something beautiful and worthy of the fight. Now, if you felt the pull of this story, you need to subscribe now. Don't miss out on the next exclusive journey. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and keep these stories alive. Share your reactions in the comments, and share instantly with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformation. This is the moment to show your support. Don't wait not even one more second.